Welcome to my Gorian cave. Girl, I am Master Chuck. This is where you will learn everything that you need to know to serve me as a true submissive Gorian slave girl. I will now read to you Master Chuck's rules for girls and pets. This is taken from a note card that is handed out on my True Gorian Sim in Second Life.
Okay, but...
Rule number 1. All girls must greet their master as he arrives. This means every time he arrives, if your master does not answer you right away, he is either swamped with IMs or dealing with an issue, so be patient, he will get to you. Rule number 2. All girls are to beg to be excused from the computer for the night, or to get something, etc. unless an emergency occurs, which will be explained upon your return.
Emergency?
Rule number 3. My girls are not permitted to travel without my permission.
You just used the word permission twice in the same sentence. Did you make up these rules yourself?
Rule number 4. My girls are to be respectful to any and all guests, visitors, and members of the city. Enemies are not guests. Do not be disrespectful to them, but you don't have to be all sweet to enemies.
Did that headgear come from World of Warcraft?
Rule number 5. My girls will strive to be pleasing at all times. A little fun is alright, but mind your tongue and your behavior. If you think it might be going too far, it is.
Mind your tongue?
Rule number 6. My girls must show complete respect for their master or mistress. This means at the end of every sentence you must include my master or my mistress, or yes, my master or my mistress, and so on. If you choose to disrespect your master or mistress, you will be dealt with.
Are you sometimes a mistress?
Rule number 7. My girls must maintain a presentable appearance when off my True Gorian island. When on the island they can wear silks, kamisk, be partially or fully nude if no guests are on the island. Rule number 8. My girls must state their devotion to their master at least once a day and whenever asked. There are to be no short answers.
What time is the DJ supposed to get here?
Rule number 9. My girls must beg to help their master regularly.
Is regularity a problem for you?
Rule number 10. My girls must answer their master promptly when asked a question. If there is more than a 3-minute pause to your answer, I will assume you have left the computer without permission and you will be dealt with upon your return. Again, emergencies are allowed and will be explained upon return. Girl? Do you understand these rules so far, girl? Girl, answer me. Rule number 11. My girls must realize their master is busy and cannot always attend to them promptly. Sometimes his mass hysteria of IMs have issues that need to be dealt with and make him slightly frustrated. Please, when your master needs a moment, do not badger him. He will be fine. He just needs to breathe.
Badger, 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 badger.
Rule number 12. You will remember real life comes first, always. But when you are here, you are my Kajira. This was the path you chose, so live it fully, embrace it and learn.
Look, is anyone else showing up for this event?
Rule number 13. Talk to me when you have a problem and we will work through it together. If you want to go to Earth, talk to me first. The color remains on.
Yes, I do have a problem. I was headed to a St. Patrick's Day party and my teleport failed and I got dropped here at your cave.
Okay, welcome. This particular series is going to be on Gorian Masters, but I'm going to start from a different point. And it's simply, what is a Gorian slave girl? For those of you who are politically correct, tough. I'm smoking a cigar and I got ash and I got smoke rising. So if you're pissed off about that, you're probably in the wrong video. Because this is Gore, and Gore doesn't do it politically correct. So, any rate, and what's funny about this, I've been on a sim. I still remember the first time I did something like this, and I had a girl on my lap in a sim, and the girl looked up and says, "You're going to catch cancer. You need to quit smoking." And I'm sitting here thinking, you do realize this is Second Life, right? That is virtual. I'm not actually smoking. That girl had a fit because I was smoking and insisted I was going to hurt my health. So for some people, this stuff is really, really real, even though we both know that I haven't smoked anything since the 1960s. And definitely not regularly because most of it was against the law, but we won't go into what I was smoking. Anyway, what is a Gorian? This particular one's going to start out as on what is a Gorian slave girl. Now, in order to be a master, there are two things that I believe are necessary to be a good master. One is to, first of all, understand the heart of a slave girl. And in Gore, this is problematic because you have to decide whether the girl that is your slave is a role play slave or a slave in real life. And there is a huge difference. Yesterday, I got told off by a girl that said, "Look, in Second Life, I'm a slave, but in IMs, it's just role play." And then started eating my ass out, and not in a good way. So the point is that there's a difference, and you need to know what you have when dealing with your slave. And that goes to the second part of what I want to deal with is getting to know your slave. But let's deal with the heart of a slave girl. I'll do that one. Then I'm going to do one on getting to know your slave, which oddly enough, a lot of men in Gore never get that. They think I own a slave. She's there to please me. They fuck her. They go home. It's over. And really, that's not what the books say. And a lot of men miss it. So let's go through this. First of all, what is a Gorian slave girl? A Gorian slave girl in the books had no choice from birth. You are born a slave. She was born into slavery and kept solid depending on the whim of her. She was born into slavery and kept her soul depending on the whim of her owner. A Gorian slave girl on Earth, online or offline, has a conscious decision. Though her belly tells her she's a slave, she aches to serve and please. She can make the choice not to allow herself into slavery should she choose to follow her natural instincts. Now, that's an interesting comment. There are slaves on Earth. There is a master right now who, Gorm Reno, in Calcaduran, he has 3 women in real life who live with him. Married to one, the other 2 are not. I'm not going to tell you his real name so you can go find the guy. But the point is he has 3 real life slave girls. Gorm is up in years, in his 70s. One of the girls is as young as 45. These girls are real life slaves. And if that's the case, then they make the choice on whether they want to submit. I mean, it's not forced. However, in the books, a Gorian slave woman has no choice from birth. But and let's be a little bit honest, in Second Life, there's also a choice. They always say it's not like BDSM. I did a tape on the difference between BDSM and Second Life. It's not like BDSM at all. There isn't this thing where you sit down and negotiate, and I show you my rules, and you tell me what your rules are, and we decide to do it all. In Gore, you're captured. But let's be honest, girls can choose A, to kill themselves. One of my slaves did that in a relationship. She stabbed herself, they held a funeral, and she came back as an alt. B, she can choose not to serve with their heart. They just do the bare minimum. And an IMs tell them go fuck themselves. So basically, there is still a choice. But technically in Gore, there is no choice. But in real life, so the heart of a slave, she can make a decision, a real slave. And that's what I'm speaking to today is a real slave, not the role play slaves that basically, whenever they get a chance, Okay, her belly will tell her which collar to beg, and once the free places are called on her, she has no more choices. She obeys, and then she totally fails if she does not. She obeys then totally, or she fails at what she is. So, number one principle of being a slave is that you're to be absolute obedience and exquisite beauty. So, the absolute obedience, you either do it or you don't. And a true slave will feel like she fails if she does not obey, if she displeased her master. Okay? Three, by the way, it's about an article written by a woman that's a slave. I don't think. In either case, on Gorn and Earth, the slave girl's sole purpose is to please the free. There are those of you who are reading this in Facebook who have that desire. Maybe from childhood, it was natural for you to please your parents, natural for you to please your husband. It's just who you are, and our owner in particular. In either case, she's acutely aware of the natural order. And that's what Norman in the book referred to Gore was called the natural order. And Gore is based on the idea the natural order is that women's place is at the feet of the free. She has a belly burning need to please that goes way beyond desire. It consumes her mind. And again, like I said, there are women who fit into this very, very much. And body, soul, and spirit, she's helpless to do anything but respond to it. And there are women who say, yeah, not so much, and end up dominating their husbands, end up being dominating the workplace, and the desire to please is not there. Some of you girls really haven't come to grips with this yet, and the natural desire for you to want to please those around you that's always been there. A slave girl does not have to be taught her purpose. She feels it in her belly. The ache is to serve and to please. And if you're one of those people that haven't come to grips with it, I want you to consider that and then know what to do. Okay, moving on. We hear it 100 times a week on online gore. It's quite simple, the truth of it. Her tummy physically pulls and her cramps and contracts with ache and need to serve and be found pleasing. Her heart rejoices each time she's told she's pleased the free and aches when she's been found not so pleasing. Her owner becomes the focus of her life. That aching when she's found not so pleasing. Gore refers to using the whip a lot to punish. Here's the irony of that. If you have a real life slave and she practiced BDSM in real life, the whip in Second Life, especially if she's empathic, won't do a thing. In fact, slaves beg to get the whip, many of them, because if they've been in real life, for many of them, that's actually, they enjoy that part of it, the submission, the part of being flogged or whipped, and that's no big deal. However, to punish a girl by telling her she's not pleasing, that you're not happy with what she did, to not see her for 2 or 3 days and put her aside, that's punishment for a true slave. It bothers her because her number one desire is to please her master. Real life or Second Life, her number one desire. And when she hears that, now, if you let's do this, make this plain. A lot of men are abusive in this area. I have at least 3 slaves who have told me that their real life partner started off great and then turned around and become verbally and physically abusive. There's a difference. If you constantly tell your girls that they fail, constantly tell them that they're not pleasing, they're eventually going to turn off. They've got to hear the words good girl. Thank you. I appreciate what you do. And otherwise it's gonna destroy them. And that's true life. That's true in real life or Second Life. Too many men think the masters say, fuck you, do what I want, and kick them on the ass. That's not a true master. And so it's very, very important that this girl desires to hear you say, well done. Thank you. You're doing a great job. And if they don't hear it, sooner or later they're going to leave. They just shut down their heart and they can't be who they are. Okay? She awakens from sleep in the morning thinking of her owner, spends her day wanting her owner. Her thoughts of her owner being with her owner consume her. Deep joy and excitement when she's with her owner. Why? Because she's doing what pleases her. She's there to serve, and he lets her know she does a good job of it. She drifts at night asleep with thoughts of her owner, awakening off in the night with a fever and ache for her owner. Then morning comes, she wakes to thoughts of her owner again. Why? Because her desire is, how can I make his life better? How can I make him, what he wants to, his goal is. She feels her slavery to her owner all the time, no matter what she's doing or who she's with. Some of mine call that being honoring the collar. Okay, and when she's not with her owner, she she wants to return her owner as quickly as possible. If you have these feelings, chances are you are a real life slave, not a role play slave, but a real life. And it's good to know that. But masters, you need to know this, because if you have a real life slave, you need to recognize that and recognize her need to please you and how it can hurt her if she doesn't feel that. She gives herself to her owner totally, surrenders herself to her owner, and her owner will, nothing holding back. She aches for her owner teaching and her owner's guidance in order for where she can learn. I have heard that so many times from girls, that they've grown from their owner, they've learned from their owner. To be a slave most pleasing to her owner, kneeling at her owner's feet, listening to her owner's instructions, absolute overwhelming her with happiness, as she feels she can take one more step at being what she so desperately needs, a slave that pleases her owner. So, masters, again, and this goes back to being a good master, and that's what the series is going to deal with. You need to tell them what pleases you. That's the instruction they desire. What do you need? I mean, what do you, basics, in real life, it could be simple things like, what do you want in the morning for breakfast? How do you want to be served? Coffee or tea or what? It could be simple things like, you pick up the mail or I'll pick up the mail. But she wants structure in her life, directed by her master and knowing she's doing it well. A slave wants structure. A slave wants to know when she does it, the structure that she's been given well. And again, commanding her is not the issue. Giving her instruction on how to best serve you is. What's her place? How does she serve you? And girls want to know that. And it's not a you bitch type thing. It's quite the opposite. And a lot of men miss this. She knows she acts in a manner of bringing her own owner pride and happiness in her owner's possession. She must be worthy of her owner. I don't know how many times I've had men tell me that I have good slaves. And it is a source of pride for me. I have 4 of them, had 5, but now I have 4. One died. I didn't lose a slave. It wasn't that. She passed away. But the fact is, every one of my girls, men have tried to buy, men have offered money for them, men have said, man, you have good slaves, and envied that I had them. Now that's a source of pride and happiness for me. She's obligated, made her owner aware of her needs, thoughts, desires, and questions. Okay, and we're going to do a whole separate lesson on that. And her owner has no responsibility to react to those things should her owner choose not to. There is a difference between a need and a want. And that's a whole separate topic. But a master's job is to know what they need, not what they want. Okay, she's obligated, made her owner of wherever needs desire. It didn't bring up the word want, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of women want things, but they have to have some things. That's her needs. And as her master, it's her need. She needs to let the master aware of her needs, and he needs to know the difference between that and just wants. Some women have a deep need for security in their lives. It's a lot of women do. And if that's her need, then going off, quitting your job and going off on a tangent is not going to fulfill that need and could throw your slave into a panic unless there's deep, deep trust. Her owner has no responsibility to react to these things should the owner choose not to, but her owner must be told everything and how she can make her, and how else can her owner make decisions for her. Like I said, the next tip I'm going to do is on this particular area, the quotes in the book that particularly talk about that. And that is a master's. He has to do that. She knows that if she forgets her place or found displeasing for owner, their owner will punish her. And I already named some ways that can be done. She knows her place at her owner's feet is tentative at best, and she'd better behave or her master will send her away, which is excruciating for most of these slaves. But her master is strong enough to punish her or toss her. Her owner is strong enough to punish her or toss her aside if she does something our owner finds unacceptable. Her owner may care for her even deeply, but her owner may even love her in his own way. But they'll never stop owner from discarding her if he displeases her owner. The hardest thing to do is be in a relationship and say this isn't going to work. But that will happen. A smart master will say, yeah, not so much. Especially if he has good women, he quickly spots the one that does not do what he wants. Real life, being real life for a minute, I used to say there's a big difference between a 30-year-old and a 50-year-old, 60-year-old man, and women for that matter. When you date when you're 30, you fall in love with everyone. It's easy. Everything's, I'm in love. I love this person. When you get to 60, you've dated, presuming that you've dated a lot in between. Let's say you've been divorced once. You know what pleases you and doesn't please you. And if you're a smart person, you don't pick the one that displeases you. You can spot it really, really quickly. I know a woman once that was 65 and got married. I mean, they got engaged like within 2 months. And this is real life. I said, why did you choose him that fast? She goes, well, he sat down, he laid all his cards on the table, and I laid all my cards on the table. And I said, yeah, even match. And she said, what the hell? I wanted the companionship. So we're going to get together. And it boils down to that. You know what works. You know what you want out of them. You've been there, done that. And you can quickly spot the woman and that's why I'm saying that if you do have a good set of girls, a brilliant set, and somebody comes in that's not so good, you should be able to quickly spot it and say no and get rid of her. It's always her owner's choice to decide if she's worth punishment, to be taught a lesson or not. If not, she goes. There may or may not be love for the owner. If she's displeasing, she needs to know. But don't do it by demeaning her. Don't do it by putting her down. Don't do it by just let her know that here, this needs to be changed. Something that made her beg, something that makes her beg for owner's collar, and something that made her beg for owner's collar, and that of another. Okay, that part's important. Some girls literally spot the guy that they want to have on their collar, or they want to be on their collar, excuse me, and they go and beg for that collar. The guy fits exactly what fits her, and she'll beg for the collar. Now, this is different. Buying them at a slave market is different than, but in many cases, a slave will see a master and say, that guy's a true master, I want him. It's a natural evolution of a slave girl's heart, although not always, from devotion, adoration, trust, commitment, and obedience to fall in love with the owner who loves her, disciplines her, cares for her. And all three of those need to happen. Last card. This is going to be a quick series. The Gorean slave is now, don't get me wrong, and I'm going to say this again. Gorean slave is a piece of property owned by a free person who can do with her as he wishes. You don't work out, you can be sold. The slave must obey immediately without hesitation. The slave's job is exquisite beauty and absolute obedience. I get pissed off when you order a girl to kneel and they sit and don't. I get pissed off when I ask somebody to go. This happened to me the other day. I got up and went looking for the girl. When I got done with the business I was on, I asked for another free to be served water. The girl disappeared. Trust me, I went looking for her. The slave must obey immediately without hesitation or question. The property is strictly held for the pleasure of its owner, and if its owner finds no pleasure in it, then it will be thrown out. However, if the slave is found pleasing, then there are no bounds to the joy, gratification, and delight that both owner and slave can experience with each other. Okay, the next one's going to be on the owner getting to know the slave. Two reasons. Number one, there's no way to let her know how she's pleasing or can be pleasing unless he knows her, how she thinks, how she works, and that's an important topic. So that's it for this one, and there'll be at least 3 or 4 of these.
That's all, folks.